Ben is in Israel, so got all time zones.
Nice.
Nice. Okay, let me just start recording. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Total Bitcoin Podcast Show. My special guests are Ben Kaufman and Crypto Kidz, or Kids, as I will call them. How are you guys doing? Thanks so much for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. So, so the whole motivation or the intention behind this discussion or panel talk, whatever you want to call it, or maybe even tutorial, let's just call it educational tutorial session, is because of my own experiences. I recently, because I had a internal rant with myself, I wrote an article because I struggled with my own full node for at least a week, and then I had to, somehow write something, for a good cause. And so I wrote this article, user-friendly Bitcoin payment infrastructure for business owners and customers is key to monetary evolution. And was thinking, because I have, a practical approach, and I'm a huge fan of education, of breaking things down, of simplifying processes and procedures, with it be, an allegedly easy to use hardware wallet, which is not for most people. I know, because I talk to people, I help them, I sit down with them, and it's still a hardware wallet is still for a lot of people not easy. So and then because of that, if they can't handle a hardware wallet that it not so intuitively as we expect them to do, how should they how they're supposed to set up 100% full node as a self-sovereign Bitcoin citizen. So I had a Casa 2. I turned it into I had it already running. It took me even for the Casa 2 a couple of days, because even with the Casa 2, with the allegedly plug and play Casa 2, which is a great product, for most people. But I sat down, I still had some technical issues, but, I managed to do this. But the features and functions, weren't sufficient for myself. I'm like, okay, I'm already into Bitcoin for such a long time. Maybe I should go a step further and turn this into a mynode. So I bought myself a premium version of mynode, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to struggle with all the command lines or do manual stuff. So I bought it for whatever that cost was, $90 or $100 a euro, the premium version of mynode, and turned my Casa 2 into which has a Raspberry 4 Pi 4 into a mynode full node. But it took me more than a week. And there were a lot of people in the Telegram groups of mynode, such as Crypto Kidz or other people, and even Ben, who tried to help me. But there are just so many potential technical issues that can arise individually, on an individual level, that you cannot, and I have total understanding, and for the folks, who are, especially for the folks who who work with one or two or three people, such as in mynode, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the time, the resources, and let alone the human resources, to dive into individual problems. And I really appreciate, the things that Ketan and what's his name, Ketan, of Ministry of Nodes have done, and Ben of BTC Sessions have done. But I watched those videos at least until I was exhausted, I think 15 times. But those videos did not help me, and that's what I'm trying to communicate. these videos are really great, and I really appreciate their help, their commitment, their ethos, and everything, all the energy and time they put into, but it does not help for individual technical problems, especially when it's like myself and pretty much average, although I would say I'm a little bit more experienced than the average user by now, but you got to take the time. And when I talk to my girlfriend and she says, hey, set me up, I don't care, but I don't have the time. She works literally every day in a business, in her shop, in her company, and she doesn't have the time. So what I'm trying to communicate and emphasize, and already, it's a little bit exhausting, but it's a little bit of hubris, of arrogance, I think, to expect from other people, especially the 99% out there, you know what, here's the stuff, go and read it, go and watch this, go and do this. So this is why I invited you guys, because you guys are really, not only knowledgeable, experienced, and, and are empathetic to the needs and real needs and desires of the average person out there who would love to set up a full node, and, like technical issues, it can always arise. I mean, it's always something. Like, for example, right now, just previously, I wanted to open up to demonstrate the mynode page of my own. Let me see if I can do this for OPSEC reasons. Yeah, no problem. So I don't care. Yeah, so this is good. Okay, this is the dashboard of mynode. It's already blinking. Everything is green except the BTC Pay server, which I do not need. That's why I didn't activate it. But I just previously, I was trying to open it up. It's like, okay, why doesn't it work again? And I tried it on my phone. Activated the Open VPN, went on mobile data instead of Wi-Fi. So these are like little details that you gotta think along the lines, and you gotta take your time, study it, research it, learn it, ask questions, wait. And I know I'm repeating myself sometimes like a parrot, like a broken record, but let me give you again this example. I tried for at least 3 or 4 days to do a port forwarding. It took me really, and I asked these questions in a Telegram group. By the time I found it out myself, I figured out myself that my router provider had to, not me, I did all kinds of clicks and here and there and the Windows settings, but it didn't help. So my router provider had to externally deactivate my IPv6 so that only the EP, so it run only the IP for IPv4. So these are like little technical details. You gotta really, dig into these things. So yeah, what do you guys think? What should be the approach? And I know already from you, Ben, but I want to make it a little bit public here. What is your position? Oh, there it's gone. My note page is gone. So, all right, that was it. How do you think we can simplify or can facilitate, this process, especially when there are potential technical issues like that, or, evolving over and over again?
Yeah, I think what we have by now is already quite good. So all the resources that you've mentioned, the video tutorials, the chats, etc. I think there could be like a million pitfalls with so many not so trivial stuff like port forwarding, like the example that you had. Which I don't think that it's possible to cover everything without actual human support. So just videos and just static content cannot cover everything. So I think the only approach is to have like live support, like Telegram groups, which it won't work all the time, but most of the time I think you can find support with such groups and such people.
Kids?
Yeah, I'd agree with Ben there that we're starting to see more helpful channels, especially Telegram, for example. It's a little bit more live support, and no matter where you are in the world, you can kind of join in the chat and see if you can get some help. But one of the better things I like about the Telegram chats is you can search the chats to see common issues that other people have had, maybe before asking in the chat. So you can kind of start to do some troubleshooting yourself. And now with each project, we're even starting to see docs or documents come up. Like for example, Wasabi Wallet, they have their documents website now, and it's just it's a more user-friendly way to get acquainted with everything that goes into using that software. So I think for mynode, the next step would, Taylor is starting to put together some guides, but I think the next step is maybe a common issues list that maybe we could start today, and then other people could add to it. And that way, whether if it is a noob that doesn't have much experience, they can go through these common issues themselves and try and troubleshoot themselves. But I mean, even with that, it is a little bit tough because there's 3 different operating systems, right? So you got Linux, Windows, and Mac. And to be honest, when I started using mynode, I've been using Windows my whole life pretty much. But once I decided I wanted to start trying to use mynode, I took the jump. I turned an old PC and I put Linux on it, and I just started tinkering around with Linux and learning how to use that, because it was just much easier troubleshooting that way. And I'd say probably because there's more, not just because there's more information out there, but just, Linux is the base layer for everything. So it just ran a lot more smoothly whenever I was using Linux to troubleshoot. So that's another thing, right? I mean, you can have your common issues, but then people have different operating systems, and those videos are great. Those guides really are good, and they help a lot of people to get to certain points. But sometimes you just need a couple extra things to get you where you want to be.
Mm. You both mentioned, the Telegram groups. They're really great guides, but it's just a lot of due diligence, of course. And I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think it's a little bit overwhelming for most people. And I've seen it myself. It took me more than a week, maybe even 1.5 weeks to figure like little details out for myself. Like a couple of days ago, it didn't work again, and I was like, why doesn't it work? And then I had to go into the settings of my my VPN app, not the Open VPN, which I usually have now on. That was a procedure for itself. So because before that I didn't have Open VPN, I just installed the Open VPN because it didn't work previously with the normal subscribed VPN service I've had. So
Yeah.
and then I figured out, oh my god, so the Ether, whatever it's called, that was like on a false setting, so I had to change it again to something like Open UDP setting. So these are like little details that even the expert, one of the real leading what do you call it, like people in the mynode group, I think, what's his name, Bitcoin something Q&A or something, he tried to help me, and he said and he tried to help me, and then I had to, but then I found it out myself what the real issue is. So these are like little details that I'm just thinking, what could be the procedure to, do you think it is viable or realistic to have sort of a, besides a hotline, like a video online service to guide people through every option there is, like you call like Microsoft service or whatever, Windows service, or do you think that is especially considering the OPSEC and everything, do you think that could facilitate or make it a little bit easier for people, like guiding them through the process?
Yeah, I think it can absolutely help people. I think until now, like I know mostly when such, let's call it, seminars were done, it was mostly like in person, like like meetups and such. I think now it will also, I think this can be done also like in completely online. I don't recall much initiatives on that. Maybe kids know, but I don't recall much initiatives like on such online seminars to set up such this stuff. But I do think it can help people. But I'm not sure like if there's a lot of demand or not.
Right. You know, as kids, as you also said, I think you mentioned that when we talked privately, you said that yeah, it's a great idea, you know, to prepare documents, you know, or to somehow adopt some documents, and people can then add that, you know, add their knowledge and their infos to that. What I would really love is that, you know, it doesn't have to be the, you know, the team members of the specific projects. You know, if there are users like yourself who experience, and this is something I wrote, you know, in my article. I said, unfortunately, no, you guys, you know, Ben, you're in Israel, you know, kids, you're somewhere else, you know, and I'm in Austria, so it's a distance problem. But what I would love to do is like go directly to the merchants, you know, such as my girlfriend, right? And there's a lot of merchants out there who would be really open-minded to have their payment infrastructure set up. And it's not that, you know, we have a lack of technology now. I mean, there's, you know, you can set up your node, right? You can set up your full node, you can connect your apps, your hardware wallets, the lightning, the channels, but just too much stuff. So if there were like 1 or 2 people that would be fairly compensated by going directly face to face to these people, at least for the initial setup and everything, and to answer the fundamental questions and prepare them, really educate them, and then afterwards, you know, people should have the possibility to talk, you know, to, you know, call up a hotline or whatever, Telegram group. So this is something I'm envisioning.
I like that idea. I probably just a little bit more down the line, because I just don't see there's enough demand for it. Otherwise, maybe we would already see initiatives like that, and maybe it'll start from each project as well. You know, maybe there will be an increase in demand for merchants that want to set up a mynode full node, so much so that the mynode project, you know, has to maybe invest resources into solving that problem. So that's my kind of thoughts on that down the line. And the only reason why I mentioned kind of creating a common issues page or document right now is that way, because I don't see that right now for mynode, and that makes it a little bit harder for people to troubleshoot on themselves, because the live chat in Telegram isn't where it needs to be in terms of immediate customer support, just because of the way the project is going. You know, it's a very small team, and so they're quickly trying to make changes as they come. And Taylor, like I mentioned before, Taylor is trying to add more guides and stuff, but I just think the community can put together common issues and slowly add to that. Because I know when I first started, when I first got my node, I didn't know that I had to reflash the SD and do a manual upgrade, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't, you know, go through the chat and start asking. But as I started using mynode, the list is pretty long in terms of things that, you know, could go wrong. So for example, it could be, you know, like you mentioned, VPN related, or it could be Tor related, or is your Electrum server running okay? And then you have Ethernet versus Wi-Fi. Taylor recommends Ethernet because it's a direct connection, and I get that. So maybe people using Wi-Fi might have other issues. Also, maybe your Ethernet cable might be a little bit unplugged. And then you have USB connection, USB 3 versus USB 2.0s. And then, like you mentioned before, with your router and port forwarding and the IPv versus IPv6. reinstalling apps, that's been suggested pretty easily. But your IP address, that's another one. People usually think that their GUI or graphical user interface will just show up at mynode.local, but I've been seeing that it shows up at your IP address more frequently, and so you have to do an IP scan on your computer in order to see the IP address where your node is.
Right.
Are you using a VM, virtual screen? Are there too many apps going and not enough RAM? And that's probably, I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that's causing some people issues with mynodes is specs. The specs matter a lot. For example, 1 terabyte is a lot better than 500 gigabytes just because of the size of the blockchain. And then also once you start to add more apps like Dojo, BTC Pay Server, or of course Electris, those take up a lot of space. So the specs matter. Hard disk versus HDD versus SSD. So specs definitely matter. Another kind of interesting one I've come across the other day was my system time was off with the node. So because the system time was off, it was having trouble with my Bitcoin D, the Bitcoin database. So once I adjusted the system time, then things started to run a bit more smoothly. There could also be firewall issues. And another one I thought it was your ISP could be throttling you because you might have a bandwidth limit on how much you can download, and if you're doing an IBD, initial block download, it might take up too much of your bandwidth, and also while you're syncing, if you have multiple nodes running. For example, that kind of happened to me the other day. I'm up north a little bit more in the country, so the internet's not that great, and I was trying to run too many nodes, and so I just had to focus on one and stop having too much fun, and just, all right, I realized my ISP was a little bit of an issue, so I had to adjust that. And so it's just a lot of things that took a lot of time for me and others to come to, whereas I think if someone that first started off with the project, maybe they wouldn't have gotten discouraged and kind of gave up right away if they knew, oh, I could have tried this, or oh, I could have tried that, because there's not everyone is there to answer them right away, and that can be frustrating, right? Because everyone has their own schedules and things like that, and
and time is luxury. I mean, you took it at the time, you took the time, but I think, I'm not sure. I mean, you got to have also, I guess, a little bit of technical, intellectual skill, capability to really sit down and figure these things out. Let me give you an example. I mean, you said something about the IP. Like, even when I had my Casa running, they told me like a dozen of times, like, hey, you got to run the Angry IP, whatever software. So I downloaded it, I installed it, and this fucking software didn't find the IP, the Casa IP. So I did it like 30 times and it never showed up. It should have, just shown up with the IP, the dot with the green dot. So these are, it's like, I'm just saying, just so many eventualities that can happen. I'm like, how is the average person out there or the average merchant out there? I mean, if you say, okay, there is not enough demand, I understand that, but still, I'm trying to, I mean, I don't know, Ben or Kidz, is in your area, would you say that are there merchants who would be willing to, to at least offer a Bitcoin denominated a payment infrastructure? At least, a small percentage of people, would they do this if it was, easy to do? Would they do it?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what others would do. I think there is a small minority who would, I guess, but it would have to be very easy for them. It's much easier than it is now, of course, and I'm not sure like what is the percentage of those who would want that and would actually be willing to pay to set it up, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What do you
and
think it's?
I would agree. There's that demand for a small percentage, but I just don't think it's there yet for the majority, and that's just because of the way the current financial system is. You know, it's still we still currently rely on it for our day-to-day lives. So I think it's going to be quite a bit of time before we start to see merchants adopt it as a medium of exchange. I mean, I definitely do see, you know, certain merchants and certain business owners accepting it on their own, but it's going to have to be them doing the research on themselves and them having to find the answers themselves. Personally, I don't think there's enough demand for on the merchant side, because it's we're quite a bit away from that medium of exchange point on the Bitcoin network. We're still in the store of value phase, right? So for me personally, I think a lot still has to happen on this in the store of value stage before we start to see more kind of solutions come up that way. Because you know, for example, just to backtrack a little bit, like we're talking about trying to simplify things and get people set up with their full node, but you know, like you mentioned at the beginning, some people still have issue with hardware wallets. So I think even before that, we just need to get more people interested in Bitcoin and using that simply before we can kind of get, you know, people adopting it and wanting to use it for their business, because it's tough. It's not that user friendly getting into Bitcoin, right? You got your BIP39 seed that you have to save and keep, and that can be scary for some people. So
Yeah, especially when you're a merchant, I mean, you would most probably, I mean, could you do it without a BTC Pay server? Because that's a probably most practical
well,
application, right?
that's another thing, right? You can just accept Bitcoin privately the way you want it. You don't have to set up BTC Pay server. You know, with your existing clients, you can just say, hey, if you want to pay Bitcoin, just I'll send you an address, and you can kind of do it that way. So
Yeah, it depends on the frequency of trade, but even if someone sets up, yeah, I guess no one will have like all his clients paying BTC, so it will always, like right now, be very low frequency of trade, and then you don't have to use like BTC Pay. You can use like very simple wallets.
now that's just in our area, right? But I think if we zoom out a little bit, I think maybe you can kind of get that idea going where you kind of have, I don't want to say like a hotline, but maybe a group of people that are dedicated, kind of like a help desk, where there's a group of people around the world that are dedicated to helping people with certain things that they're comfortable with, and if they're around, they can, you know, join in the chat or whatever and help out whoever they can help out. I'm just trying to think of how it could be done from a global standpoint, because I'd say there is more demand globally than there is, you know, country to country.
I just feel I mean, that's the way I perceive it. This is the quiet before the storm. And I'm a huge fan and advocate of preparation is everything. You know, when they talk about like on and off ramp exchanges and they're trying to like prepare for the real whatever bull run, because they got to have the capacities, right? So I do think, and that's the way how, you know, when I listen to people or with the business people, merchant, I mean, my girlfriend, for example, she would offer her customers whatever in a very small discount, whatever that is, you know, 3, 5, or 10%. And that's why I'm really looking forward for that Strike app, because then people, even if they hate or, you know, ignore Bitcoin, they are, you know, they can still pay with just, you know, with just an app. That's what people are familiar with, right? They download an app, they show their QR code, or they just scan it, and the transaction's completed. And everything else in the back end, whatever that is, the full node, the connect, the channels, everything, for security, for privacy, for OPSEC, this should be sort of hidden in the background, the complicated stuff. But the procedure should be then easy by then, and they should already be somehow prepared to to scale it up.
But yeah, we are starting to see those, I don't want to say solutions, but those options come up. But unfortunately, they're the ones that are non-custodial. So you're not owning your private keys. And, that's not how we want to get the average user involved in Bitcoin, right? And that's another thing you have to keep in mind is, yes, we want the masses to get involved, but how are they going to get involved? What options are they going to choose first? And most people that are used to using government services, they're going to say, oh, great, I can use this Stripe card, just tap, oh, I'm using Bitcoin. It's like, no, you're not using Bitcoin really. And no, you don't control that Bitcoin. And no, you don't know how to control your UTXOs. And so there's that we have to keep in mind, right? So that's why I kind of mentioned the demand earlier as well, because I think we will start to see more demand, but it'll be for options like that where it's very easy and you don't know what's going on in the background. But we don't want to continue to do that anymore. The people want to take back control of Bitcoin, right? And so that's kind of deviating away from it.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I think the problem is that we're competing. We're not just like trying to get the masses. We try to get them right, to use it in the right way. And not just that, we're trying to do that while multi-billion, companies are trying to do the exact opposite, to get them using it through their, custodial services, to trust them, whatever. And you can't really compete with the level of convenience that a custodial service like Coinbase could offer. So this is like the main problem that I see. So if you see another like huge bull run, this could be a very large problem, I think.
Yeah, good point.
What was the easiest part when connecting one of the apps to my node was I set up my node, and when everything was then finally set up and running, the easiest part was to connect my Samurai wallet to my dojo. That was the easiest and fastest and shortest procedure I've ever done. And I'm like, if that is like scalable or adaptable, or whatever, the average person can do that. And I think they can, because that's why I'm a huge fan of Samurai, because it's really easy, right? I mean, you download the wallet, you just follow a couple of instructions, and you've got your Whirlpool as mobile mixing on your wallet. And I know, and they don't even think, I mean, they get constantly questions like, hey, when are you guys going to do Lightning? And they're not interested in Lightning for good reasons, of course. And it's an online, right? So it's maybe the fees are, I don't know, would you agree? Is that like an average higher than, or do you think these are fair prices or fair fee prices that you pay for? I mean, the post mixing is for free. The constant post mixing is for free. But what's your experience with Samurai? Do you have some?
Well, paying a fee, you gotta pay for what you get for it. So that anyone, I think, using these CoinJoin services, they do think about fees and they try and do get the lowest fees, but it's not, I wouldn't say that's on the forefront of their mind. They just rather prefer the quality of the mixes being better. With that being said, I'm pretty sure Samurai Wallet does offer, free rides, and it's quite cheap to mix using Samurai. And also, you know, the reason why it was easy for you to set up Samurai and get it started is because they have such an active community, and they've had a lot of people join their project that aren't getting paid by them. They just have people that really like what the project is doing, and then you just these people helping them out on their own and trying to make Samurai Wallet better and kind of be part of that project. And so that's why you're starting to see a lot of users get set up using Samurai Wallet with mynode, because before it was tougher to use a full node with Samurai Wallet. You know, you had to get the dojo, but now it's a lot easier, I'd say, with mynode and cheaper.
Right. And you know, I was just saying, you know, I was trying to make a point here is that the practical thing, really, like, let's just, you know, just for the sake of it, like, if the merchants, if there are customers who would be, you know, who would be willing to pay just theoretically with the Samurai Wallet directly out of the Whirlpool postmix, right? There's nothing easier than that, right? You just, you know, you don't have to, you know, transfer back and forth. You just complete a transaction directly out of the Whirlpool. So that would be something that is, you know, scalable, I would say. I'm aware it's not Lightning, you know, and all that, but I think it's pretty much instantaneous. Would you agree with that, or I don't know, am I wrong on this one? Kids?
Okay.
Do you have any?
I thought it was Ben's turn that time, but I don't think I would agree with that right now. I mean, for you and I, yes, it seems easy and it seems scalable, but you know, it would take a lot of time. Think about how much time it took you just to get into Bitcoin, and now we have to start doing that with the average user. So we have to just find ways that a new person getting involved will learn faster than we learned. So that's, you know, that's why I kind of mentioned the common issues, because there are things that we figured out already that took us a lot of time to figure out, and we're trying to save people that time so they can just connect the dots. And I mean, I do see that being an option for privacy focused merchants for sure. I just maybe don't see it happening on too much of a grand scale.
Right. So, what are any other suggestions or you know, thoughts you want to share, like how we could improve the onboarding, the educational part, the practical solutions to, you know, how we can somehow prevent people from doing the same mistakes over and over again, like we have done, or I've done, me personally, or other people.
I don't think there's any replacement for, you know, for human interaction. I don't think we can build you know, websites with sufficient content to cover everything, and I don't think most people are able to do most things, even with, you know, with current technology unrelated to Bitcoin. I have, you know, many friends and family members who are not very good, you know, with computers, with phones, and can't do stuff which for me are basic. So I think the best approach is, you know, is to rely on people that are more technical, and give them the tools to help the less technical people, to make it easy for them to be helpful for others. So if I don't think that you can go directly for all the noobs, but I think you can help those that are in a position to help the noobs, to spread it out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think as more in, you know, demand and incentive, and there's incentive there for developers, I think we'll start to see more developers and more projects come about that do make it easier for the average person to get in Bitcoin. You know, just to backtrack a little bit, Bitseed was, I didn't actually use it, but it was supposed to be a plug and play full node, and Now, mynode is kind of going that way with the plug and play aspect. So these projects are starting to get the idea where it's, one-click upgrade. Now, whether that actually works okay with mynode is neither here nor there, but at least they're trying for that. And, Ben's right. That's what needs to happen for any average person to get involved with Bitcoin is they need to know they're not, well, they need to know they're using it, but not know that they're using it, like it's behind the scenes. And so, yeah, I think it will take for developers to make these easy to use applications. And maybe in the meantime, on the way there, people like ourselves can kind of, or entrepreneurs can start to gather information from each project and start to see how you can make that project better. So mynode is getting there and it's already doing itself. But like I was saying, if there's a common document that anyone can refer to, I think it would help a lot of people get set up easier. But, beyond that and not focusing on mynode, maybe we need to think of more creative ways of people that want to learn about Bitcoin. For example, it's not really fun to learn about Bitcoin right now. You're just you have to be motivated yourself and you think it's fun. But if you're just a regular person wanting to learn Bitcoin for the first time because someone told you think you should, it's not that interactive right now. So maybe there could be some interactive games where people could get rewarded for getting past a certain level and understanding a certain concept with Bitcoin. Then people can kind of start to understand the concepts that way. And maybe once more people start to understand Bitcoin and why it matters, then maybe we'll start to see more of those developers create more user-friendly apps.
So in essentially you're saying it's just going to take more time, right? So, all right. By the way, I've noticed this fan of my Casa hardware, which I turned into mynode, is so loud. I mean, it's so noisy. I don't know what's your experience, but I can't turn it down. I can't reduce the. I mean, it's crazy. I can't even sleep at night sometimes. Anyway,
what kind of fan is it?
I don't know. It's just a normal fan, but it's super loud. It's like constantly. It's like running 24 hours. Like I don't know. Is it because maybe I turned it into a mynode and it's it has to work, it has to process much more data or whatever information?
That's definitely a possibility, but at the same time there are just loud fans and you can get a quieter one. But
yeah,
you're right,
but
it's
then
probably because it's working.
Yeah, I probably have to disassemble it and put another thing. Let me say that before we wrap up. So Ben Kidz actually when I suggested let's do a panel discussion, the three of us, he actually told me about that you work on the Spectre desktop. That's why I on the one-on-one talk we had last time. That's the reason I thought you could maybe dive into it and talk about it. What do you think, Kidz, about the Spectre desktop?
I just think it's a great user-friendly option, and that's kind of why I mentioned it to you. Maybe it's not user-friendly right now, but they're working towards it. And so yeah, when you asked if I wanted to speak with Ben, I just remembered that he was helping them, and I thought I think it's great what they're doing. Right, they're providing a use case for certain users. So you're starting to see now we're starting to see full nodes become more popular, right? So with mynode, you can take your RPC credentials and you can put them into Spectre, into the Spectre desktop app, and you can start to sync your full node, and you can kind of use the Spectre desktop app as a watch only wallet, so you can see your balance. But as Ben mentioned before, you can connect hardware wallets to it. Not just hardware wallets, like your laptop, for example, that might run Electrum desktop, that can be considered a device, and you can create a multi-sig setup and create PSBTs. So I think, I forget the short term, but pre-spend Bitcoin transaction. But it's the raw transaction that you create, and then you can broadcast it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, with I guess a hardware wallet, like maybe a cold card or something like that.
No, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So
Yes.
we're
Yeah, Ben.
no, yeah. So just saying, you can sign that with. I think now what is supported. That's the non-air-gapped options is like a Trezor, the Ledger. I think Coldcard has a non-air-gapped option too, and KeepKey. And air-gapped, you can do either Coldcard with an SD card or Spectre Do-It-Yourself, which is another project of Crypto Advance, which is a do-it-yourself hardware wallet using a QR code instead of connecting directly to a computer in order to sign transactions to transfer data, which should be much more secure than even SD cards. So yeah, that's like the wallet support, and right now you can use them, create multi-sigs, sign transactions. Yeah.
You know, funny enough that you mentioned the DIY project. I actually thought when I first heard about the Spectre, and I went in the Telegram group and I just kind of looked over the information in there quickly. I actually thought that was the only option, was the DIY project, and so I kind of just forgot about it. But then Fontaine from Fully Noted shared some information from his group on how to get set up with Fully Noted and Spectre. So that's when I started to look more into it and realize, oh, okay, you don't need to put together this DIY. You just need maybe a Linux desktop, and you can download the program and then start from there. And then if you really want, you can get a cold card, Trezor, whatever, and make it a little bit better the setup. But yeah, you just need a Linux environment and PC to get started.
Yeah, maybe the same name for both wasn't the best idea, but I don't know. I didn't make that call, but yeah.
But like that's what we're talking about, right? Like you have all these great projects, mynode, Spectre, and they're trying to make things more user friendly, but of course they don't have the budget that Coinbase might have or something like that. So I think maybe it's up to the community a little bit to join forces with these kind of teams and say, hey, maybe this is how I can help out a little bit, and just kind of like collaborate that way.
I'm curious,
Exactly.
when you guys, I mean, do you have like friends or people around you, like whoever, neighbors or people who know you, you guys are knowledgeable? Do they ask you like for help to set up a node? I mean, what's your feedback? What's your experience with people, like, or do you have any experience with people?
Well, in my area, I've actually ran meetups starting in 2015. I ran meetups, and I would go to them, meet face to face with people and try and educate them. And honestly, every time it felt positive. It felt like people learned something, but everyone's different, and honestly, I don't have people in my personal life like asking me constantly. It's very random, and it's very rare, and it's also very dependent on the price. If the price of Bitcoin is high, then yeah, more people will be asking. But then when that happens, I don't want to help those people because I know their intent, right? I don't want to help people that want to speculate. I want to help people that want to really understand why it matters. So that's another thing. I mean, I'm starting to run virtual meetups again and try and help people from an educational standpoint that way. But, I'm starting to see it again where people just want to know how to make money from it. And it's frustrating a little bit, I'd say.
And have you helped?
Yeah.
Have you helped people? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think for me it's a similar experience, I guess. Um, well, in Israel also we have like the Bitcoin embassy, which is quite well known, I guess, at least relatively. It made it to the news a few times during the bull market, where people were just lining up for the ATM there. So it made it, yeah, a few times to the news. So it's quite well known, I guess. I think most noobs, or at least many noobs, go directly there, and from there, there are volunteers that are helping. Sometimes if somebody asks me, I help too. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's just so many questions open. I mean, for example, let me give you an example again. Is there's like different wallets or Lightning wallets, and it's not only me, but I think a lot of people asking how can you connect your wallet, would it be Blockstream wallet, the Breeze wallet, directly to your node, and I still haven't figured that out. So these are the things. Maybe it should be compiled, in a compact way, as you said, Kidz or Ben, into a document, or um, into maybe a tutorial guide or video. By the way, I found this website. I don't know who posted or tweeted about it. Do you guys know this website, bitcoinqna.com? Sort of a
Yeah.
compilation of, yeah. Is it good
Uh,
or?
well, yeah, Bitcoin Q&A just created it recently, and it
Mhm.
seems to be very well received by the community so far.
Okay. Are there any resources or sites or that you would want to like direct people to, or?
We'll see. There's so much, right? There's so much information out there nowadays, and that's why I think it depends on the person and the type of person, right? Because depending on the type of person, they're gonna seek certain information that makes sense to them and they like. So I think the information is out there, and there's so many resources. Before, people were sharing Jameson Lopp as that
Mhm.
website, as that resource website, and so we're just kind of starting now. You have Bitcoin 6102, or I think the
Mhm.
website is bitcoin-only.com, and
Yeah.
so
Or
you're starting.
Gigi's Bitcoin resources. What is it called? Bitcoin
Yeah.
resources or Bitcoin 21 lessons.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, he's got a good resource.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
you're
Bitcoin only. Yeah.
you're starting to see kind of entrepreneurs, take create those roles and fill those roles that are needed right now. And I mean, as for Lightning Network, I don't have much experience with that, so I still think it's a bit experimental and
Mhm.
maybe not necessary right now. But with that being said, there was a huge demand for making coffee payments, so to speak, and making small payments, and so that's kind of how the Lightning Network came about. But I wouldn't recommend it, just because I haven't heard 100% positive things, and it's also not that user friendly yet. And it's just another thing, right? It's just another thing for an average user to start learning about, when they might not need to right now. The average user doesn't need to learn about Lightning Network right now. They just need to learn about their seed and how to back it up, and their private and public keys, and how to keep that safe. So that's just my opinion on Lightning Network a little bit.
That was awesome. So, any final thoughts, or what's your perception right now? I mean, you know, uh, zooming a little bit out, I'm just curious. We're like macroeconomically, geopolitically, all this, the multi-trillion uh, uh, printing of money. What's your perception? I mean, especially we're in 3 different countries, and uh, how do you guys perceive the situation around yourself when it comes to monetary situation?
You want to go first on this one, Ben?
Yeah, I think here specifically the situation is relatively like good relatively to our neighbors, I guess. So at least for example, I think Europe is in much more, is doing much more extreme stuff with their money. So the ECB is behaving quite absolutely crazy. Okay, I don't have like a better way to say that. I don't think the Israeli like central bank is quite conservative. So the situation here is pretty good, I think. But I'm really not confident that it will stay like that. Like I do think things will change a lot. But for now, I do think things specifically here are quite fine.
Yeah, my country, Canada, the first world country, so it's nothing really bad, so to speak, is happening. And I mean, I don't think we'll go back to a new normal at all. I think after all this is done, it won't be how it used to be. And maybe that's just my kind of conspiracy theorist side of me, but I think this is kind of a play, and it's interesting to see all the people just kind of listening to what the government says, right? And it's also interesting to see what Bitcoiners are doing during this time, because typically Bitcoiners were anti-government, but now the government is saying, okay, there's this virus, so now you guys need to stay inside, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And we're starting to see a lot of people just go, okay, sure, no problem, I believe you again. And so it's a little bit interesting to see what's happening from that standpoint. But here it's just going to kind of transition into maybe more online and a more virtual world, right? Starting to see free deliveries for food. They're offering free deliveries now just so you can order from them. You're starting to see telemedicine happening with your doctors, so you're not having to go to physical locations so much. Like, I think we'll start to see those changes. And also cash is starting to be frowned upon because, oh, it's dirty. And, I think that's just them trying to abolish cash and go to digital payments and digital transactions where the governments can create their own blockchain that they can audit and things like that. So that's kind of where I see this going, but it's just my opinion.
Do you see an emergence of a breakaway civilization?
I think people are already doing it like in their own way, but just not advertising it.
Awesome. So guys, thank you so much. It was really awesome with you, sharing thoughts and ideas, visions. I hope, I guess it's going to be gradual, as we say, and then suddenly. But the question is, can we, also as Bitcoiners or, educators and the technologists, because there's going to be a gap, right? If there's a huge demand all of a sudden, are we ready? Is this, is the structure or is the technology ready to serve? And so this is what, the ultimate question I'm asking myself. That's why I say, preparation is everything.
It's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to say that,
Right. So, gentlemen, thank you so much, and hope we can repeat this in the very near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.